Ladies and gentlemen, you are now entering the Decent Christian Talk podcast. Enjoy.
Decent Christian Talk, episode number 89.
89. That was a great year to be born.
Well, since it was your birth year, I decided to have you back on the show.
Well, mostly because the ratings have been dropping without me.
That's not entirely true, but anyway, I'm Gabe Jones.
I'm Josiah Jones.
I'm not talking to myself this week, so that's good.
I mean, who knows? I might check out halfway through.
Anyway, we've got a great show for you today. We have one of my favorite bands right now, My Epic. They are on the show today, and I'm excited because they have been putting out some really good tunes lately.
I was listening to some of those yesterday. Now, I haven't got to sit down and do my in-depth listen and read the lyrics. You remember when you used to get the CD case and
I don't know what you're talking about,
or cassette tape case, and you sit and read the lyrics as to the I haven't got to do that yet, but I have given it a couple listens and I really enjoy it.
I might talk about that in our bonus episode.
What, looking at the lyrics?
Yeah.
Okay.
Speaking of that, check out our Patreon page, patreon.com/Decent Christian Talk, if you're interested in hearing the bonus episode, which you don't want to miss, because we're going to talk a little bit more about the interview. We're going to talk a little bit about our throwback album of the week, which is
Blindside, Silence. This is one of my favorite of all time.
I was trying to do silence there, but...
Well, you were just literally being silent, so I had to...
Yeah. And we're also going to give our picks for album of the week, so you don't want to miss that. And the only way you can get that is through patreon.com/Decent Christian Talk. For as low as $1 a month, you can help fund our show. It helps us pay the bills. For $5 a month, you can get those bonus episodes, and it helps us out. Not only are you getting the bonus episode, but you're helping fund the show and keeping us going. For $10 a month, you can be a part of the DCT Music Club, and if you like what you hear from My Epic today, for instance, we'll send you a physical copy of their, whatever EP or album you would like.
I mean, what more do you want?
I mean, that's a pretty good deal. Anyway, that's at patreon.com/Decent Christian Talk. We greatly appreciate those that have already helped. People like Maria and Jody and Leslie and Lorena and Michael Bonner. Speaking of Michael, where are we today?
We're in 13 Palm Trees Podcast Studios.
Yes, and they help us sound like a $1,000,000.
We always have good content, but sometimes you just can't hear us because we're always in the line of fire. But today we're in a studio with windows and there's a video
growing
game.
Temperature.
Oh yeah, we shut the air conditioning off so you could hear us better.
Yes. But since we kind of want to feel the air conditioning again eventually, we need to head into the interview right now.
Let's get it.
Without further ado, here is our interview with My Epic.
All right, hit that horn, babe. Let's dance.
For those that don't know anything about My Epic, or maybe they've just been introduced to you guys recently, can you tell me a little bit of the background of yourself and even the beginnings of the band and kind of what got you to where you are right now?
Yeah, we started it. We had kind of all met in college, and we had all played in other bands before. And we started My Epic and started touring. And then in the early parts of 2008, we signed a record deal with Face Down Records. And we had been touring and working on our own for about, 2 or 3 years, booking our own tours and stuff. And so we got signed and started touring more heavily and put out our first full length. And we've really been doing it ever since then. And at this point, we put out 3 full lengths and 4 EPs, I think. And Yeah, we've mostly have the same members we started with, and then we picked up a few good friends along the way. We've gone from a 3-piece to sort of a 5-piece, but we really usually only tour as a 4-piece, but we write as a 5-piece. And it's me and my brother. Jesse plays drums, and 3 of my best friends, Jeremiah plays bass, and Tanner and Nate both play guitar and keys and sing as well, and then I play guitar and sing lead vocals.
Nice. What did you guys grow up listening to? I know you guys you have a diverse sound. There's a few tracks that sound a little bit like Radiohead, and there's a few songs that sound a lot more harder than that. What did you guys grow up listening to that has influenced the band's sound?
Yeah, we grew up kind of all over the map. I think most of us kind of grew up into like punk rock and grunge. We were all kind of like 90s kids. Went to high school in the 90s and stuff, and went to college in the early 2000s. So I think that stuff really was helpful for us because as soon as we got into playing music, like we could write our own songs. Because those songs are relatively easy to play. And then in college, kind of expanding into, like I think we all started getting into hardcore, and some of the guys into metal. And yeah, bands like, bands that have been super influential to us over the years, obviously like early grunge stuff like the Foo Fighters and Nirvana and Smashing Pumpkins, Cranberries and all this other really rad stuff. And then the Deftones were a super influential band. Obviously bands like Radiohead, and then lots of other, assorted artists. We do have a pretty wide range, and that's sort of been something that we have always loved having in our sound, is like a diverse sound, like wanting to have a pretty big scope between the softer parts and the heavier parts, and being very dynamic. And that was something we intentionally did for this record, was to make a record that had a lot of dynamics to it. So like really soft parts, really giant parts. Because we really like the way that those things interplay with each other. So for these last 2 records, the one we just put out last month is called Violence, and the one we put out last year is called Ultraviolet, and they go together. And Ultraviolet was intentionally like, let's write a record that's just our chiller stuff, because we've always had that stuff in our sound on all of our records, but like let's for this next record, because we've been around for so long and we're always looking for new challenges. We never want to do the same thing, so it was like, let's do an EP where it's a little bit chiller and we don't do the heavier stuff, and let's do a second EP that's just the heavier stuff. And so that's where Ultraviolet and now our newest record, Violence, comes from. It's sort of allowing us to tap into all that stuff that we love so much.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I was going to ask about the differences between the 2 EPs. It's not just a sound dynamic. There's also a subject dynamic. It's kind of like a concept album, if you will.
Yeah.
What made you guys decide on these topics, and what made you guys... I don't know, what led you to have these subjects on your record? Because a lot of these, especially with Violence, a lot of these are topics that a lot of people don't like to talk about.
Yeah, which is kind of why it felt like we needed to talk about them, right? We wrote a song, we had an EP that came out. We kind of moved to just doing EPs for the last few years, just because we could get music out faster and we could keep the quality high. And that's not to say we won't ever do a full length again, but just at the time, it wasn't the practical thing to do. And the first EP, we kind of announced that plan was an EP called Viscera, and that came out in 2016. And the last song on it was a song called Open Letter. And in that song, we really just dealt with doubt and struggle and fear. We had a lot of friends who were people who had never had any faith, and they were starting to doubt, and starting to maybe move towards having some faith, believing in something more than themselves. And then we had a lot of other friends who had grown up with faith and were doubting it. And we kind of felt like, well, we always try to write about whatever's in front of us, whatever feels important. We don't want to look away. I think if we want to be true as artists, like we need to talk about and write about whatever's in front of us. And we don't really write to explain. We write to understand. Like most of our songs are like, hey, this is a really tough thing, or a really beautiful thing, or a really weird thing. We need to talk about it and kind of figure out what we think about it, because that's life, right? Like processing. And so when we wrote Open Letter on the end of Viscera, it was a song just talking all about the doubt and the struggle of being a person and dealing with existence and death and life and religious systems and faith and belief. And it felt like as soon as we wrote that song, it was like, that's a whole record. Like, so that really, when we had the idea for Ultraviolet and Violence, we said, okay, the first EP will be chiller, and it'll more be dealing with doubt and faith, matters of belief. Some of those songs are very personal to us, and some of those songs are us wrestling with things that other people around us are going through. And then Violence is more about struggle and pain. And I think it's really important that we sing and talk about those things, because they're a huge part of life. And whether you're a person of faith or not, like, those things are going to happen to you. And I think a lot of times people that are of faith communities shy away from that stuff when it is like, it's so important to talk about. Because a lot of times I just think anything you don't talk about, you bury it down and it becomes destructive, and something that maybe could be a growing pain turns into a death sentence. And so we're not particularly skeptical dudes or angry dudes, but we have that stuff in our life. And so it just,
right.
If we'd have written about anything else right now, I think we would have felt like liars. So hopefully people will hear these songs and find them just as beneficial as maybe the other stuff that's a little bit different. Already grabbed some. Sorry. That's maybe as hopefully people will find them as useful and like kind of get where it's coming from. So yeah.
So a couple of those songs on the new EP on Violence, there's a song called White Noises that kind of there's a lot of what's going on in the world around us where there's people that call themselves Christians and they, I don't know, they kind of lack empathy. I don't know if that's where you guys were coming from with that, but what are some experiences and what are some things that you've seen that led you to write that song? And also, what was the process of getting Corey Brandon from Norma Jean on that song?
Yeah, I think that with that song, it was just, we feel like there's a lot of times when nobody's listening and everybody wants to be heard, nobody wants to listen, and that is not really a prescription for anything good. And so that idea was kind of in our heads, like because I used to work on staff at a church, and because I also tour in a rock band, like I have people in my life who are on extreme different sides of topics. Like I have friends who are very, very conservative, and I have friends who are very, very progressive on the other way. And so I always see them on Facebook and on Twitter, and it's funny, they don't know each other at all, and they're not each other's Facebook friends, but I see them and they're like yelling these really mean things. And especially when I see things like, hey, if you believe X, then don't even bother reading this post because you're an idiot. And then they give their opinion, and that to me seems so useless. Like, why even type? Because if the point of sharing truth and stuff isn't to change minds, isn't to grow, isn't to get better, then what's the point? Like, why are we talking? And so, like, it just all turns into white noise. And so that idea was there, and I was chewing on it. And when we wrote the first, and then as far as Corey Brandon goes, we're huge Norma Jean fans. That's like one of our favorite heavy bands for a long time. And we got the privilege of doing a tour with them a couple years ago, and we became friends with them. And that was we just got to know them, and we clicked. And at the time, we were just started to talk about the concept for Ultraviolet and Violence, and I approached him, and we talked about it, and I barely got the sentence out of my mouth. I was like, hey, we're working on this thing. I'd love to have. He's like, I'm in. I want to do it. Sick. So, we've always really loved his singing voice. He's an awesome screamer, but people don't give him credit for what a great singer he is. So we were writing whenever we were writing the record, we were always like, well, I wonder which one of these songs we'd want to use Corey on. We just had that in the back of our heads, and we had a couple of things that we tried, but once we wrote the opening and Rest of White Noises, it was like, oh, this is the song, because it feels different and it feels left of center. We're always interested in trying something new, and it was like, oh man, nobody would expect us to do this. So yeah, I wrote the lyrics and sent them to him, and he was all in this idea of talking about that topic through basically just talking about lack of empathy, and basically having two characters who are arguing the whole time and they're not listening to each other. They're just consistently like yelling at each other, was like, it's so true to reality, unfortunately. And then in the end, they're saying the exact same words, but they're not agreeing at all. Which is like so often I'll see people from opposite sides saying the same mean things and not realizing that they sound like the same. They sound the same, even though they totally disagree. So it just kind of all came together and worked out, and we dug it. We knew it was a little bit of a stretch, a little different than anything we've done, but like that's always exciting for us. And we think, you know, we don't want to stop pushing and stop growing, because I think that's one of the things that people have valued about us over the years is that we do what we're excited about. You know, there's an honesty to that, I think.
Yeah. Actually, the first time I saw you guys live was with Norma Jean on the For Today Farewell tour in Pittsburgh, and I was really kind of overwhelmed with how good you guys were live. How important is that for you guys to have that great live sound? I know you said you added some people over the years. How important is that to you guys?
Well, it's always we want to do the best we can. We want to be super professional with everything that we do. I mean, there's a stewardship issue of always wanting to be like, if we have an ability to do something, then we want to do it as well as we can. But we all grew up on really aggressive music, and so even though we have a lot of pretty stuff, like it's kind of, we just enjoy the dynamic. So we try to really come prepared, and you do, the longer you're an artist, the more that you kind of feel like what works well live and what doesn't, and being able to engage an audience becomes another part of that process. Like, you know, when you're first writing, it's just about communicating what's on your mind and on your heart. And then as you tour more, it's like, okay, are these things connecting live too? And that's for sure a big element. And, you know, when we do it, we want to try to do it well. So we're on tour right now, trying every night, whether it's a small show or a big show, like to give 110% and to really just enjoy it. So, it's we love being on tour too, because we get to be together and we get to connect. And honestly, it's just being on tour is like one of the most rewarding things, because putting a record out is kind of like screaming into the darkness, and you're not really sure if it's working. But when you play live and people come and they connect with it, it's a powerful thing. To know that the songs matter to them, and to know that the songs meant something to them, and that the thing that was on our hearts and mind, like transition.
I know you talked about how the whole concept album thing has kind of worked for you guys. Do you think that this is something that you're going to continue to do in the future? Is this something that you think is a thing that works, or are you going to maybe try something else for the next project?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're always looking to make a cohesive piece of art, whether that's an EP or a full length or whatever. And so it just made sense for the last little bit that there was kind of a theme to Viscera, there was a theme to Behold, there was a uniting kind of ambiance to Yet. So we're always looking for some through line, because I think every portion and period of your life has some kind of theme to it. And so really our songs are written out of our lives. So every record I can go back as kind of a time capsule from that time of life. So yeah, I think we're just starting to talk about what might be next, and it's not anything I'm ready to really talk about yet. But you know, I think we want to continue to push ourselves. We want to continue to push ourselves and try to do something different and new. With every record, we have a pretty defined target. We want to hit it, and then we want to move on. Like if we tried to rewrite one of our old records, we would be just competing with ourselves, and that's pointless. So, like Behold was just like a really, really heavy record full of like grateful songs and powerful songs, and Yet was a really raw record, you know, with like personal struggle. And if I tried to redo that, I don't know that I'd ever do as well again. So yeah, hopefully we'll have something. We'll think of the next thing to do, and we'll push towards it. Right now, it's that little honeymoon phase where the record's out and done, and we feel like we get a little bit to just chill. We need to let some more life kind of flow over us, you know, before we're ready to write more songs.
Yeah. If you could talk to yourself in the late 90s when you guys kind of got together, what would you tell yourself before, you know, after knowing all that you know now, what would you tell yourself back then?
When my epic was starting?
Yes.
So 2004.
Okay.
What would I tell myself? Man, I think I would. Honestly, I don't know that it would be anything at this point that I would. Maybe I would tell myself not to take a 5-year break from touring, because we took a 5-year break from touring from like 2012 or 2011 to, well, as many as 3 or 4 years. But I mean, that's a really small thing. But yeah, I mean, I think what I would tell myself is just to really enjoy it, and just to not let it become about comparison. Because when you're an artist and you're a band, you're always wanting to compare yourself to what other bands and other artists are doing. It's just not very helpful. Like, I wasn't given the same stuff they were given. I wasn't given the same exact gifts or the same exact passion. And just to enjoy what I do have. And I think I'm pretty good at that, but I could always be better. Yeah, so I think I would just tell myself, just to enjoy it for what it is.
Nice. Where can people find you online if they want to find out about music, tour dates, and all that?
They can find, myepicrock.com. And then we're on Facebook and all the other places, Spotify, anywhere people want to go to listen, they can go. They can go get the record right now. It's out on CD, it's out on vinyl, all streaming platforms. And come see a show. We're out for another 2 weeks. And we love to meet people, and we love to see fans turn into friends. So, I mean, this is not a big corporate thing for us. We love to meet people and make new relationships. So, yeah.
Cool, man. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. I love the new album. It's pretty cool, man. Thanks so much.
Hey, thank you so much, Gabe. I really appreciate it.
That was our interview with My Epic. I'd really like to thank Aaron Stone, the vocalist for My Epic, for hanging out with us on the Skype machine. I think it was Skype. No, it was phone. Never mind. He was on the phone.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, thanks for checking us out on the show today. And there's a lot of stuff in that interview. We talked a lot about kind of their last 2 EPs, their Ultraviolet EP and their Violence EP that just came out this past month. And for those of you that have not heard these EPs, it's definitely worth checking out. There are people that will love the Ultraviolet EP, and there will be people that love the Violence EP that don't love the other, just based on their genre preference, because they are distinctly different. But also, not only is the genre different, but also the categories of songs are different, like the topics. So there's a distinction there, and we talked about that in the interview, and we will talk more about that in our bonus episode.
Bonus.
But you don't want to miss that, and that's again at patreon.com/Decent Christian Talk. But we are going to head off into the sunset.
Even though it's morning.
It is, well...
It's morning. Well, depending on when you're listening.
Here.
Is it? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm over on the wrong side of the table.
Yeah, you must be in the...
different time zone.
Anyway, you can check us out on YouTube. We have over 3,000 subscribers on there. Thank you guys so much.
Yes.
We are on Spotify. We are on iTunes. You can give us a nice review on there, by the way. We're on the internet, decentchristiantalk.com, believe it or not.
Internets.
Yes. We're also on Facebook, facebook.com/Decent Christian Talk. And we also have a discussion page, a group discussion page that you can check us out. We have fun little get-togethers on there every now and then.
Yeah, some good conversations.
And, of course, we're on Twitter, DC Talk Act 2, and we're also on Instagram, DC Talk Podcast. And again, you can sponsor us through Patreon at patreon.com/Decent Christian Talk. We hope you guys had a great Memorial Day weekend. It was warm where we live.
Well, I mean, don't jinx it, because it's warm right now. The weekend is not over yet.
Well, when they hear this, it will be over.
Yeah, but it's going to rain on me.
Well, it always rains on Memorial Day. There's 3 things: death, taxes, and rain during Memorial Day weekend.
Oh.
Anyway, thank you guys for checking us out. We will catch you next time.
Don't forget to tip your waiters and waitresses. Thanks.
Don't forget to tip your waiters and waitresses. Thanks.